Yesterday, we saw the fall of the greatest hope that Europe had ever produced internationally. G2 went down to Fnatic yesterday, and with that, and in its stead, now stand 3 brand new young teams that try to prove themselves. Here, in the SLE, we start to breed that new talent. We are creating a new generation of League of Legends players that try to compete, that try to raise the standard and break through the ceiling. My name is FMA. Today I will bring to you 2 games. First up, we will have Arctic Hollow against Gentle Monkey, and afterwards we will be seeing the clash of Crown of the Ruined King up against SG Momentum. Without further ado, and with a lot less talking than the other days, we are going to be going directly into the draft overview of the game that took place yesterday between Arctic Hollow and Gentle Monkey. There is something that is not the way that it should be, but we can fix that. Interesting. Let's try to get this sorted as we jump into the draft. Apologies, everyone. This is not working out how I expected it to. Although I did have a pretty good intro, there are some minor technical difficulties as of right now, as I'm trying to look to fix them. Well, what do we have here? That should do the job for now, as we will take a look at what Arctic Hollow and Gentle Monkeys did draft themselves yesterday. We start out with the bans. From the blue side, from Arctic Hollow coming out, we do have the bans of the Jinx, the Gnar, and the Braum, and that will be answered by the side of Gentle Monkey with the Hecarim, LeBlanc, and Viego ban. So yet another game where we do find the Viego banned, and the respect bans shown from the side of Arctic Hollow towards Gentle Monkey are very interesting to recognize. The other side of Gentle Monkeys did elect to go with that Hecarim ban, which then did lead Arctic Hollow to actually first pick the Nocturne for themselves in the jungle. We've seen a lot of success coming out from that Nocturne pick, especially because of the prevalence of the dive meta that we have really been witnessing in the Supreme League so far. That will then be answered by the side of Gentle Monkey with a Xin Zhao and Leona combination. A lot of counter dive being set up and some early game jungle pressure in order to try to maybe dominate the Nocturne and throw him off of his game plan, to not let him scale up so freely. Then we will take a look that the Arctic Hollow did actually draft for themselves a Lulu and a Shen. So the Lulu as protection mechanism for the divers that actually go in and for the backline that might need some protection as the dive happens, and then the Shen as a bomb sort of to set up alongside the Nocturne so that the Nocturne can deliver the Shen into the midst of the enemy team where that Shen pick can be the most effective. Pretty interesting combination of champions that we already see in the first 3 from Arctic Hollow, and that will then be answered with a Mordekaiser pick into Shen. Mordekaiser and Shen have some interesting interactions because in the matchup, Mordekaiser can actually struggle to sometimes proc his passive consistently against Shen, as the availability of the auto attack can be denied by that W coming out from the Shen, which does actually mean that the Mordekaiser sometimes has to get a little bit more creative with his trading patterns in order to try to get the upper hand of that lane. But the damage over time components that Mordekaiser does bring and the tank shredding that the pick does have in its toolkit can definitely lead to some demise up towards that top side. Then we are now taking a look at the second round of the draft phase, where there is a full 4 bans towards the AD carry pool, so completely pinching that out. with the Ezreal, Samir, Kog'Maw, and Vayne bans. Kog'Maw and Vayne, obviously 280 carries that we have not seen a ton of here so far in the Supreme League. The other two as well, so we still have some options available, and they do elect to go for a Jhin on the side of GM, and that will be answered by a Sivir and Ryze. Ryze is a blind pick into the mid lane, and that will then be looked to be counterpicked by a Malzahar. Malzahar really rising up in the current meta as a solid answer into a lot of picks that were a couple of patches in the past people weren't even really thinking about. However, Malzahar was one of the champions that people discovered the quick lost chapter start. So a very early lost chapter start where at 3 minutes and 30 you could basically already complete your lost chapter if you started out with a I believe Sapphire Crystal and then had Futures Market, and you would perma-shove the wave, recall, and then actually look to set up a minion wave so that you can look to recall and TP back into a lane and have the earliest possible completion of that lost chapter. Now that does conclude the draft for now, and we can talk a little bit more about the different lane matchups. I already briefly mentioned the top side with the Shen Mordekaiser and the Xin Zhao Nocturne, and if we look at that mid lane, there is not really a clear advantage towards either side. However, the Malzahar does provide a lot of threat and actually ability to control the Ryze and the ways that he would like to move around the map and push out his minion waves because of the control. I just mentioned that twice, that the Malzahar does offer through his silences, through his minion wave management with the W, and obviously also the push power coming out from that E. Then he has a beautiful ability to set up picks with his ultimate, and the Xin Zhao being a tremendous follow-up makes it so easy for the Xin Zhao to actually play the game. So a really good setup already being provided here from the top side of Gentlemonkey. And then down towards the bot side, we have Sivir Lulu up against Jhin Leona. Jhin Leona, clear aggressors here, whereas Sivir and Lulu do have the ability to peel back in a lot of scenarios, and Sivir being an extremely safe champion. An issue that she does struggle with is the amount of stuns that the Leona can actually throw at her can really sometimes throw a Sivir off her game, because there is never really certainty when you should, can, or are supposed to spell shield, as Leona really makes it a little bit uncomfortable for most Sivirs to play the game. We will be seeing how that actually unfolds inside the game as we do begin loading up that VOD, and we can take a couple more seconds to maybe think about where the junglers would like to path. Xin Zhao having the... oh, maybe we don't even have that time as draft loads extremely quickly, so we can jump right into the action here for our first game, or I guess the last game of yesterday. If the game would be recognized as a capture, that would be wonderful. So we can directly jump into it, onto the Rift. Arctic Hollow up against Gentlemonkey. Gentlemonkey's first game in the Supreme League. A lot of reschedules had to come out from their side, but I'm definitely excited to see what they do bring out, as I do know their coach a little bit. And I am interested to see what effect he can actually have on the team and how that does unfold. So, taking a look at the level 1 start, nothing really too surprising yet. We do see the bot lane of Gentlemonkey teaming up together here, whereas there is more of a 5-point pressure setup coming out from the side. We have a top side invade coming out here from Yoshimitsu, who already has the Audacious Charge and does jump onto Yorone, but couple of auto attacks and an early ward will be all that is achieved here. Now that does mean that he started with the Audacious Charge, which is very, very common, as it does give the attack speed steroid for the early jungle clear of the Xin Zhao, who then actually might not look to recall, as they now catch out Yorone once again, and the Nocturne from the side of Arctic Hollow has already recalled. So now another ward being placed down here, as Yorone is desperately trying to defend his jungler's blue buff. In the meantime, we don't see any action coming out from the bot side. Now Dreambird does go towards his blue buff as well, and with Yoshimitsu walking over that ward, he will actually be spotted out. The bot lane of Gentlemonkey is now trying to prepare a leash for Yoshimitsu, who then is able to although with a few seconds of delay, I mean 1 or 2 only, able to start out on his blue side, blue buff as well. Some very interesting pathing already coming in here. Yoshimitsu really trying to force the issue and assert some dominance before the minions had even spawned. We will have to observe if he can continue that pressure throughout the match. There are basically, is there anything interesting? I guess we do see that Lethal Tempo on the Nocturne. There's a lot of discussions and in general talk about what you should take, what you're supposed to take. A lot of lane Nocturnes especially liking that Conqueror, a lot of jungle Nocturnes really preferring the Lethal Tempo. And for the side of the Sivir, as I am actually interrupted by once more creative pathing coming out from Yoshimitsu, who will then be spotted out from the bot lane, coming out from Arctic Hollow, who will find him on that buff. The smite is available and he does secure it as he flashes over the wall, and there will be no further follow-up farther side of Arctic Monkey. So he does secure it, but does lose his flash for it. Now, how can he continue the jungle pathing so far? Yoshimitsu really stamping his foot down, doing 2 camps only, and there will be now pathing into their own jungle here, continuing with the Grom. Their red buff still available. Dreambird not making an attempt on it as he is on the complete opposite side of the rift. Yeah, but I had been mentioning about the Sivir Lethal Tempo is that usually people in the past really preferred that Dark Harvest, and they're still going for that lethality build a lot of the time. However, there are a lot of people that are actually taking the Lethal Tempo on the lethality build even, as there has been a change in the damage scaling of the W, which does make that more viable. Yoshimitsu now smites the bot side Scuttle Crab, so his 4th camp of the game will actually be that Scuttle Crab, as he has already secured himself that level 3. They're basically now even in camps, as Dreambird now does look for that topside Scuttle Crab. Yoshimitsu now trying to fully clear his jungle, and the red buff still available. Maybe we can see if Dreambird tries to make an attempt on that red buff, as he's now trying to sneak himself just before Yoshimitsu actually makes his way over here. A lot of trading going on in the top side as well, as Moriarty is trying to utilize his passive, but does lose out a little bit on the trade, as he does now take over to level 4. Now we will see those 2 junglers collide once again, as the Raptor camp rather, was started up from the side of Dreambird, but he does not secure it for himself. So the lane priority coming out from Moriarty here actually means that Yoshimitsu will be able to secure his Raptor camp here, and the mid laner for Gentle Monkey also trying to protect his jungle. Now the stun does land on Sivir. I talked a little bit about the interaction of the spell shield, as Lulu does leave the lane for just a second, which will mean that Lulu is not there to protect the Sivir. And we do see that the Ryze is now out of mana in that mid lane. Does still have the TP available and already 66 stack on his tier. And we actually, if we take a look at the inventory, we do see that, now the Leona goes in once again. The root does come down on her, and the Ignite is forced out as well, as the flash has to be utilized. Now the Lulu under a lot of scrutiny, who does utilize her own heal. No summoners left for the Sivir, as Black Knight is trying to desperately defend himself from the aggressive bot lane coming out from the side of Gentle Monkey here. They will now have 3 minions pushing into them, but those have already lost some amount of HP, so there will not be a freeze directly possible. However, if you're playing such an aggressive bot lane, you might look to convert that priority that you are able to get in theory, and actually go for a dragon. Yoshimitsu, however, has other plans, as he has made his way up towards the top side, but does not find the gank, as he's standing directly on top of a ward. A huge wave here from the side of Yorome, who does then get pulled back, and his E actually gets cancelled by the Mordekaiser pullback, so he does look for a little bit more of a trade, and we can now start to see that he is starting to win that matchup out a little bit in terms of the damage. The Ryze now back to full mana actually, as he walks back to lane instead of TPing, and both top laners still have not elected to go for a base yet. Dreambird now finds most of his jungle cleared, and the only thing that he can now look for is that Scuttle Crab that is up towards the bot side. Nice little trade coming out from the side of Wesley onto the mid laner of Gentle Monkey. As now we do see that Yoshimitsu will also prioritize that Scuttle Crab. Smites it once again, and that does mean that the 3rd Scuttle Crab of the game and the 2nd bottom Scuttle Crab will belong to him once more. Dreamer is around, and he's not happy to see himself lose that objective, as there is an engage down towards the bot lane, and a lot of damage traded back and forth. Black Knight really losing a lot of HP, as Yoshimitsu flashes forward and finds the audacious charge, and Wind becomes lightning onto Lulu. TP now coming out from... Oh, it is actually cancelled, so Uncertain-ish does jump forward, and a flash forward from Doge Lover will secure himself 2 kills with a nice bouncing grenade. The third one might also fall, as they're trying to attempt the dive here. Uncertain-ish is definitely looking for this. He tanks up the turret first, and a triple kill at minute 7 already gained for the side of Doge Lover here. He will really like that gold, and that bot lane is now really scary, as it does start to snowball. Yoshimitsu is, however, not done yet, as he does see that Wesley has fully pushed in that wind wave, which does allow him to land the Wind becomes lightning, and the 3-hit combo does also land, but no mana from the side of the Malzahari here, and also no availability of the ult will mean that there will not be any further chance for a kill here from the side of Gentle Monkey. Yoshimitsu finally putting his attention back towards that topside jungle, really leaving that unattended for a lot of the game so far. Both of the jungler's blue buffs, however, are up and available. The third buff on the map is that red buff from the Nocturne, who Yoshimitsu does seem like he might be a little bit interested in. Let's see if he does path towards it. He does seem to elect to go for his own blue buff instead. So some more camps for Dreamer, as Moriarty tries to trade some more with the Yorone here. But we don't actually see any huge advantages gained. A bit of a CS lead for the side of Moriarty, who certainly has not only priority, but also has a frozen lane state that he finds himself in here. So nice minion wave management coming out so far. Does land the pullback here, but Dreamer is here to try to maybe find some trading. No paranoia used at 8.5 minutes into the game. Is certainly something to take note of. One of the largest cooldowns in the kit of the side of Arctic Hollow is not finding any impact yet. And we mentioned how important that dive can be for what we've seen so far coming out from the SLE teams, who are looking to really put the pressure on the enemy and force the issue. Yeah, a lot of damage, but of course that is also because of the collector purchase. We do actually see it matter for once. Collector not being favorable in a lot of situations, but now in this game it does just seem like the perfect item, as a beautifully snowballed game from the side of Gentle Monkey will give them their 17th kill of the game, and then a Nexus explosion for the side of Arctic Hollow. Gentle Monkey certainly looking extremely good here in their first game, and yeah. So I think we actually have an interview, as I can deafen myself and then drag the interviewee up towards me. Hello there.
Hello, mate. What's
Hello.
up? Wait, I have to turn down stream so I don't hear myself.
Okay, I will turn you down a little bit as well for the pleasure of our audience. I hear you're the coach, or one of the coaches, for the side of Gentle Monkey, and after a beautiful game 1 for your team, how is the mood in the team?
I mean, the mood is fucking amazing. Like, what else can it be? We just did a fucking amazing stomp. Like, I wasn't there when the game was actually played, but I'm proud of what my players have performed today. Like, there's not much else to
And with that, we will be returning to day 4 of the SLE opening tournament. With me, I have once again brought Jonas, the Gentle Monkey coach, who will be joining us actually on the casting room. Hi, Jonas. You're going to be
Hello,
having your
mate.
first game. It's going to be a bit of a banger. We saw SG Momentum come out yesterday with a very, very strong opening. Have you ever scrimmed against them?
Not while I was here.
Okay. Well, they are an incredibly dreadful team to look at with some of the highest rated players that we do actually have in the tournament. And yesterday they left Viego open against them. And even though I mean, how do you feel about leaving Viego open in this current point?
I mean, in this current meta, I'd say that's a pretty bad idea. Viego is just an abomination, to be straight out. He's so broken right now.
Are there any other champions that you feel deserve that sort of ban priority?
Um, Not really. Maybe 6 on blue side, but that's not really in the terms of broken that Viego is. That's
Well,
more just of a strong pick for red side.
we have also seen some of the support players in this tournament look absolutely excellent. And with a player coming out from the side of SG Momentum called Flay today, I expect to see a Thresh at some point in the tournament. So we will potentially see that come out. And I think Thresh is a champion that is obviously historically very, very strong, right? And I mean, he has so few weaknesses in his kit. Do you also see him as a high priority champion?
Definitely. I mean, even though Bright keeps nerfing him, he's still at the top of the support tier list. Like, this kid is just insane. It got everything you need. If you need to peel, like, his ulti will slow you down, his E, his Q, his W. It's just an amazing kid. But hopefully we will see Flay today play some Thresh.
Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. And what are some of the champions that you look forward to seeing in the mid lane? We've seen the most dominant performance from any mid laner coming out from the side of NSG Forsaken so far, who played a game of LeBlanc and a game of Oriana. I think the first game was pretty unmemorable from his side, but yeah, LeBlanc and Oriana. Oriana obviously being always in the meta. It's kind of hard to get her out of there. It's like, I don't know, some sort of insect that will just never leave. But LeBlanc coming back pretty recently. Do you think that there are any other champions that sort of compare to the power level of LeBlanc in mid?
I mean, it would be a top lane champion then. Like, all these Renekton, Camille have I seen as well,
Yeah.
and stuff like this. This is stuff that can match LeBlanc, but in the terms of pure mid lane champion, I don't think there's much in the current meta that can match with LeBlanc and the power of LeBlanc.
Then talk to me a little bit about the LeBlanc Twisted Fate matchup. We saw that yesterday, for example, in the LEC and also in the LCS playoffs. Twisted Fate obviously having some issues in the 1v1, but if played correctly, can actually take advantage of LeBlanc quite well. That's why a lot of people really like the rapid fire cannon. And simply just as something as simple as just throwing a gold card with a little bit more range than you had before can really mess up the entire rotation of a LeBlanc. How do you see that matchup go most of the
I
time?
mean, normally people would say it's probably LeBlanc favored because of the tough matchup the TF got, but if TF just rushes Mercs and then play safe, look for the TP, or not the TP, the ultis bot lane, top lane, or the TP,
Hmm.
then you should be pretty set. And when it goes out from laning phase, then on the side, LeBlanc can't really do much if he doesn't get ahead early. So it's a really spicy matchup. The junglers need to help, or the supports needs to help the LeBlanc to get ahead,
That
or
was what I
else the
was going
TF will get the advantage.
That was what I was going to ask next because, funnily enough, both of those champions sometimes struggle to take priority on their own. Twisted Fate actually having a little bit of wave clear available to him, but not a lot of just raw damage that he can put on a wave sometimes. And the Blanc obviously having that committal wave clear with the W that can sometimes make it really, really difficult for her to take priority. Where do you see that go? Like you mentioned the supports and the jungler coming in to help the LeBlanc. Do you feel like the Twisted Fate also needs that to be unlocked to be able to roam? Or do you see that in a
Um,
pure 1v1 being a little bit different?
I mean, it also depends a lot on runes. For example, if LeBlanc doesn't go minion determinizer and uses those 3 on backlines, then she won't one-shot the backline minions at level like 9-ish. so getting prio at that stage will be hard for her. But in terms of pure early, like throughout the first few levels, I think TF will mainly have the prio because of his E and LeBlanc's mana pool.
Yeah, mid laners, take note of this. You just received the most important tip for LeBlanc. The minion dematerializer is actually the only way that you will have some amount of wave clay available to you, because the extra damage that you do get is absolutely ridiculous. So
Yeah.
then let's move to more of the jungle meta. We briefly mentioned the Viego already. Then let's sort of transition into the other two prevalent junglers in the Lee Sin and the Xin Zhao. We're seeing a ton of Xin Zhao, and really only one player in the tournament so far picking up Lee Sin. What are your thoughts on the jungle pool?
I mean, obviously, Xin Xiao turbo busted, abusing the broken bruiser items. There's not much to it. That's why he's a top tier jungler and his insane early game damage. And then his ulti as well in fights where the ADC just can't hit him while he's bashing on the front line of the enemy team. And that's what makes him a top tier pick. And Lee Sin, I mean, it's also just an insane early game champion, and the current meta is quite early game orientated in the
Also, a
jungle.
bruiser item abuser.
Exactly. Like this Gore Drinker Sterex stuff, it's hurting the game a lot, in my opinion. It's
Oh,
so broken.
well,
Too much shielding and too much healing.
I mean, let's look at last season and see where Renekton was. We thought of Renekton as a blob of meat that would fall off a cliff after 17 minutes in a game. And now Renekton is like a scaling team fighter, kind of. Like he's actually good in the later stages of the game. I think there is something with the items that has changed there. And moving into that, do you feel like there are any safe top laners? Like for example, on day one, we saw a ton of Ornn priority, and a lot of players feeling like, well, I'm not too confident here. Just lock the Ornn, right? I mean, who doesn't
Hmm.
like Ornn? Do you
Yeah.
think that there are any like really safe top lane blind picks?
I mean, as you said, the Ornn is really safe. It can't really get stunned because of the W, and it got everything you need. It got engaged, disengaged, and it's just a meat shield that can tank up a lot of damage. Something else though is Shen. Shen got a bit of tough matchups, but is in my opinion it can also be a safe blind pick.
Well, and the
Um,
beautiful thing about the Shen is I've briefly mentioned to you how effective the dive comps have been so far in SLE. Like they're
mm,
really turbo broken, as you'd say. And then with the Shen, I mean, last game it didn't work out because obviously they were facing your team, right? So of course it doesn't.
yeah.
But Arctic Hollow drafted themselves Shen Nocturne, and you mentioned you really like that draft, and I have to say I
Mm.
also really like that draft. I think it's a very interesting adaptation and take, and sort of fits in line with what you're saying about how good Shen is. Then what are some of the matchups that Shen can potentially find himself exploited in?
I mean, that's obviously the most broken top lane in the game, Camille. Like when once she goes one
Cho'Gath ult
item and
on
goes,
one ability, on a basic ability? Are you
yeah.
kidding me?
That is not balanced at all, but once she goes side lane, the Shen can't do anything. Like he will just sit there at his tower and be like, "Yo, team, when do you need my ulti?" And when he does use ulti, Camille will just E him or ult him, and then he won't even get away.
Yeah. Well, then Camille obviously being turbo broken. Let's talk a little bit more about how to actually exploit Camille then. What is good into Camille?
For now, just I feel like every time there's something that should counter her, she always comes up top. But there's obviously these range matchups like the Vayne, the Quinn in the top lane that can bully her in lane. The Poppy can deny her engage a bit. And then the Jax, of course. The Jax, which is a known counter for Camille and has always been. Um, but other than that, I don't really feel like there's much counterplay to it.
What about the Kennen into Camille? Or maybe the
I mean,
Jace?
the Kennen and the Jace, again, the Jace is a bit tougher, but Kennen, I'd say, is a good matchup as well. Mainly because you keep autoing her in lane, you bully her out, and you can't really engage because you'll just press E and run away.
Yeah. And
And
like, if you're playing the lane correctly and you always keep up those 2 stacks and she tries to E you, like, you don't even have to run away with the E. You can literally just press E, sit still, and actually stun the Chimera as she goes to try to go for you. Like, it's actually a crazy matchup in some ways.
yeah, but then again, Camille will outscale him in side
Yeah.
lanes
Yeah.
as always.
So then we see a little bit of a different sort of ideology of what they want to do. We've not actually seen Kennen really crop up yet at all so far in the SLE. But if we're building dive comps, guys, pick more Kennen. Kennen is one of the strongest divers in the entire game and can completely change even one team fight. Even if he goes down 0-3, he just goes in, oh, I have flash hour up. Guess what? I win the team fight for free.
Exactly. There is the potential of a 5-man stun with the ulti and the W. You should pick it up if you're playing top lane. It's a really strong, even for mid lane as well. There's in solo queue, a lot of people has been running Kennen mid instead of Kennen
Ooh,
top lane
that's
because it's
spicy.
just so much easier in lane to get away, like get out of lane.
Mm.
Because in top lane it's such a long lane where you can get caught and you can get jungle dift. But in mid lane you can't really die when you can just stun and run away.
I feel like there's more rough matchups into canon if I think about, like, okay, but Syndra exists, for example, and like, oh, that sounds kind of rough.
I mean, it is also just a counter pick in the mid lane. That's why it's not played
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah, but
But
like, it's
into these melee matchups, it's really good.
ooh. I mean, I was like, oh man, it would probably be really good into Silas, and then I stopped myself and thought for a second. I was like, wait, but then the Silas gets the cannon ult, and that's not good.
Yeah, it's not the best matchup, but it can work out. You just gotta work around the Silas ult count timer on your when he can steal it from you,
Yeah.
and then fight around that.
Well, he does not have the ultimate available. And after all of our beautiful draft talk that we had, that I find extremely enjoyable, we will now be moving into the pick ban phase here, as we will be starting that up. So, we already see a Kale ban coming out. We saw that also against Ruzu yesterday, so it does seem to be a bit of a Kale player. Seems to be an interesting pick rather than trying to find an answer, but there are some champions, and his win rate on it, by the way, is absolutely mental in solo queue.
Yeah, I mean, Kale is just like, you just leave her alone and she'll scale up, and then she'll win you the game, if played correctly.
No,
It
it's
is.
Thresh ban. Pain.
Oh,
Oh, the Viego is open. Still open.
maybe SGM will ban it at this third ban, but it's looking like a Lulu ban so far.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think they care. I think they're like, yeah, go pick the Viego.
Do you think
That's-
they will opt into a Sinchao pick,
I think
or
that
at least then?
I think that no, actually, okay, here's the Viego ban. I would have liked to see the Lee into the Viego, because if you're like trying to if you're saying, okay, pick the Viego, I'm the better player, then you have to also come down with the Lee Sin, in my opinion, because you're like, well, I will just skill check you. And Lee Sin being the perfect champion, in my opinion. Last game that we watched from Yoshimitsu, we actually saw one of the most creative jungle pathings that I had seen so far in the tournament. So I really want to see more of that sort of creativity coming out, and that coming out from a Xin Zhao who does have that early priority is, of course, why we did see that. And now we do see the Swain ban. Interesting ban, obviously being a comfort ban against the side of Crown of the Ruined King. Maybe they just don't have anything else to ban, is what I'm thinking here. As they do ban two
the
of the
Viego is
enchanters.
banned and the Thresh is banned, which is highly priority picks.
Yeah.
So
Two, I mean, an Ezreal first pick, right? There's a lot of priority on getting that Ezreal. I believe in the last game that Crown of the Ruined King did play, they did have that banned against them, so they do have that available this time around. Ooh, and a
we see the
Kalista
Kalista.
Ansta. How do you feel
So
about
this-
the Kalista into Ezreal?
I love Kalista, but Ezreal is a safe laner, so they're opting into a Kai'Sa maybe.
Yeah,
They
okay.
opt into the Kai'Sa.
This is a
I
pretty
would have
classic
loved
matchup
to
now.
seen. Yeah. It's a pretty safe matchup for both ADCs.
Last
but
time
it's
SG
all-
Sorry, go on.
It's all about the support picks right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're looking at a frontal pick.
Well, you told me support picks, and while we have not seen a Trundle support yet, there is obviously the possibility of that being picked up, especially if we do see some, maybe a Braum or a Leona coming out from the side of Crown of the Ruin King, who do select themselves the Morgana here. I actually really like Morgana and Trundle. I think that's even if that's not a Trundle support, I think in the later stages of the game, Morgana can really mess with what Trundle's trying to do.
Yeah, I agree.
When the Jarvan comes out, what I was briefly going to mention before is that with the Kai'Sa and potentially the Rel, I'm not going to talk about the hovers yet, with the Kai'Sa coming out, that does indicate that they're trying to at least place a little bit more towards that bot side. Last time SG Momentum played, they basically didn't touch bot lane at all. Bot lane even fell behind a little bit, but the gap that was created in the top side was simply too massive for their opponents in TLC to actually handle it. And then we do see the Rel come out. So they do now provide themselves with a lot of engage. Trundle obviously not being the greatest at engaging, but if I'm thinking about how a Trundle could potentially follow up and what a Rel is trying to do, because the Rel does have very long range engage, right? She actually has the ability to group everyone up together, and the pillar can really deal some damage then, because then being able to put the pillar in the perfect position can absolutely ruin an AD carry's day.
I agree.
So what we have not mentioned yet is also the Rel into the Morgana. Shield Break being an absolutely amazing tool in that matchup, right? Black Shield is super terrifying for most supports, and if I'm thinking about traditional engage supports, they don't like Morgana whatsoever. The Leonas, the Threshes, Thresh being more of a follow-up, of course, but the typical engage supports hate Morgana. But Morgana hates Rel, because just being able to delete that Black Shield is hella powerful.
Yeah, I mean, Morgana basically can't play, or the person she backsteals can't play against Rel, because Rel will just demolish that shield anyways.
Yeah.
It's just a horrible matchup, if the Rel can play it.
If the Rel can play it.
We might see the Kiana. That's gonna be spicy.
A blind pick Kiana, maybe. Also potential Zoe hovers, as they have pinched the mid lane pool a little bit. Kassadin being one of the bans levied against SG Momentum last time they played as well. And then we actually see two of the picks that we were talking about in the pregame, in the Camille and the Renekton banned from SG Momentum. Give us the Kiana. It's gonna be the Silas one. It was spicy. Xander's having a very good game in his first time around. Did pick himself up that Irelia. This time around, not electing to go for that, even though it was available. And now we have to see what an answer to Silas is. What do you think are typically good answers into Silas?
I mean, typically, the Kiana is actually a really good answer, but they're lacking some AP, so they can't really pick that up. But generally, just stuff that where Silas can't really utilize their ulti. Like, for example, a Nivea. Silas with the Nivea ulti is not good, for example.
Silas, I think the Zoe is what I think about when I think about good matchups into Silas. It might be the Galio here. Galio ultimate being pretty powerful for the side of the Silas, but can maybe try to neutralize some of the laning phase by just being more durable than the Silas had initially anticipated. I'm not personally a fan of this matchup for the side of Galio. What I am a fan of is when you told me how good the blind pick Shen is. But I told you about how much players have liked the Ornn, right? And SG Momentum last time they did also face an Ornn. And you know what they answered with? With a Lilia top lane. And it was just a gap in that matchup. This is going to be Lilia top again. This is super spicy, of course. And it is just an incredibly difficult matchup to play.
I actually loved the Lilia solo lane after the recent changes to Lilia. It's such an abomination to play against. You will just get queued down, autoed, and then queued, and autoed, and queued. And you can't really chase it because she got so high mobility. You just stack up her passive real quick on the minions, and then it's just really unplayable. And I think the same matchup as the Ornn into Lilia is gonna be for the Shen into Lilia. I can't really see.
I think it's rougher. I think it's even harsher, because at least the Ornn, like, he had the ability to at least get out of the lullaby once or twice with his W. The Shen just doesn't have that. And
That
like
is true.
you can't really defend yourself against dives, which Lilia just feasts on you if she's able to run circles around you. Trundle not being the most powerful diver, but if he has someone like Lilia that is powerful and he can just tank the turret up, place a pillar down, and then cut one of your retreat paths off and potentially maybe deny a taunt, right? If the Trundle player is actually good and like places his pillars well, you can interrupt some really nasty dashes.
Yeah. You can
now-
also interrupt the Jarvan EQ combo with
Yeah,
it.
I was going to talk about that one next, but what also is very important is maybe the Jarvan can actually find some success here this game. We've not seen a ton of it so far in SLE. I do generally like the pick, and I think it's pretty good. Another shield that can be taken down, by the way, by the Rel. It's pretty
and the
minor.
Galio ulti shield and the Shen ulti shield.
The Shen
There's
ulti.
just-
Oh no, they picked Shen into Rel.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh
There's
no.
gonna be a lot of shield breaking from the side of Rill.
I mean, maybe the idea of Crown of the Ruined King was like, haha, you can now break the Shen ulti, but at least we still get to Black Shield afterwards.
That is true. That might be the case.
It's not a gambit I would like to take, but this looks very, very dangerous for Crown of the Ruined King. And yeah, we're going to have to see what actually does end up unfolding. So a lot of rough matchups for CRK in pretty much all of the lanes. The one saving grace that I see is that Jarvan is actually able to lock down the Lilia, right? If he is able to like just press Cataclysm on her, Lilia is one of the champions that can't just get out of it. And sometimes being able to just lock down that pesky Lilia can be all that's necessary. If the backline is able to deal with the threat of the Sylas and maybe the dive coming out from Kai'Sa and Rel, who... I mean, Kai'Sa Rel was really popular in the past because of the way that Kai'Sa can reposition and Rel can find very, very good stuns. So if the synergy is on point here, then that can once again maybe be thrown at the side of Crown of the Ruined King. Where do you see some of the advantages that Crown of the Ruined King can maybe find for themselves?
I mean, I see the Ezreal. The Ezreal pick got so much set up. Like, you have so much peel for the Ezreal. You have the Morgana, E-Shield, Shen ulti, Galio taunt, Galio E, Galio ulti, and the Jarvan being in the way. And if he can just push out damage without the front line dying too hard, it's gonna be a real good game for Ezreal. I really look forward to seeing Jarvan spending a lot of time bot side here.
Yeah.
And maybe even some TPs from Shen and Galio, just give up a wave for the TP, just to secure some kills for Ezreal. I hope it's gonna be bloody in bot lane.
Yeah,
Because
we're looking
at the same time, Trundle is also looking to go bot lane for the Kai'Sa.
Yeah.
Even though he can also play topside for the Sylas and Lilia, but...
I don't think you try to play around the Lilia. I think you try to maybe gank her once or twice when she stacks a couple of waves and then you try to dive the Shen. But other than that, I don't see him, like... For example, you don't have to help the Lilia manage waves. Like, that is just super in their favor, and Trundle does then have the option to just pay some attention down towards the bot side. Now, what I do want to see is maybe the Rel actually freeing herself from the lane and finding some roams, because I think that early objective control could be a big deal breaker. We've not seen many teams utilize the Herald very effectively. I mean, in the last game that we watched just now, we saw the Herald secured and killed before he got the charge off. That hurt me.
That is really a bummer. to not even get the Herald charge off first time.
Yeah.
That's a lot of gold missed there, and a lot of time spent that just got ruined from that one play.
Do you think that the Ezreal is sort of a champion that can... So we talked a bit... Let me set this up better. We talked a little bit about how we think that the peel for the Ezreal is going to be the most important one, right? The aspect that maybe Crown of the Ruined King can find themselves an avenue in the game. Do you feel like the Ezreal is a champion that can utilize peel very well? Or do you think that Ezreal I guess there's more of a traditional mindset of Ezreal and more of a modern mindset of Ezreal. The traditional mindset is, Ezreal is just the safest AD carry that you could possibly pick because you can always E out. But with Korean Ezreal, we've learned that you don't just have to E out. You can really carry in fights. And if you just land every Q, you can put out a tremendous amount of damage. Which school of thought do you subscribe to more, and why?
I mean, I love the Korean way more. than the traditional stay back, you're the safe pick. Like, Israel got a lot of damage if you utilize his kit offensively. And I really hope to see that the Just League things will bring these kind of combos out that you can do damage with.
Well, not only do they have a lot of peel, but we've the dive. I don't know how often I have to mention it, and at this point, my head is kind of starting to spin with how often I'm actually talking about it. But dive is good from the side of Crown of the Ruined King, so they do have an aggressive win condition on that side as well.
Yeah.
Do you potentially expect to see any level 1 shenanigans? Are you like, oh my goodness, this team is actually turbo insane level 1? Or maybe some level 2 gangs?
I mean, CRK does have insane level 1 CC lock.
Yeah.
If the Morgana Q hits, the Shen Taunt comes in. Galio E or Taunt, probably the Galio E will come in, and then the Ezreal to pick up the kill.
Yeah.
It could be spicy if we saw a level 1 invade from the side of CRK, but from CGM, it will mainly be maybe if they did like where they just hid in the bush, like did a counter invade, or some shit like a 5-man stack.
We have actually seen a couple of 5-man stacks, and we've also seen a couple of 5-man stacks up against each other, and those games explode. And the most interesting part is that, like, oh man, you flipped the game level 1, you lost. No, they didn't. Twice now, teams have actually managed to then lose the game after going 4-1 and 5-2 in a level 1. So that is pretty crazy to me, that even sometimes just outlaning your opponent is all that matters, even if you do flip the game level 1.
Yeah, I mean, League of Legends got a lot of variable changes in the game, so even if you maybe get behind at level 1, you can still pull out in the laning phase and stomp your laner, even with a 1-0 lead from the enemy laner, just through pure outlaning.
So are there any... I mean, we are already taking a look at the keystone choices here. Are there any that you find interesting? Anything that sticks out to you?
I mean, the Shen Grasp, I'm not really sure that he will get a lot of procs off.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have went into like a spell book maybe. Or even an aftershock just to get more tanky. Since he won't have that passive shield against Rill.
Well,
but other than that, I think it's mainly really what's it called? Like standard runes.
Yeah, well, we are finally loaded into the game here. I'm gonna be honest with you, Jonas. This has probably felt like the quickest draft phase ever. An absolutely amazing analysis of both of these comps, and I'm really looking forward to see how both of them will unfold on the Rift here. Starting out, no spicy items either. I guess we do see a Doran's Ring for Lilia, which is a little spicy, I guess. Yeah. I don't even know. Well, now let's see what these players decide to do at level 1. Do see a little bit of a stack coming out here from the side of Crown of the Ruined King.
This could go spicy.
Yeah, it could, because there's no vision yet of this stack of players. But now the rail will actually spot them out. The flag will make notice of that rail, and now...
Maybe we could see CGM looking for a topside ward on the enemy jungle. Maybe the Trundle will put a quick ward, get back, get the sweeper, and then could sweep his blue buff. But that's about it for this early game.
That does kind of look like what's happening here, as Trundle places a very deep ward to spot out the pathing of whether something is actually coming into them. So that does indicate to me that they're trying to look for this buff steal level 1. They will first spot the Shen out, and the Jarvan is trailing a little bit behind them. Xandart's also moving closer and closer. Does have the first move here, as they will try to sweep out any wards that are around the pit or around the blue buff here for the side of SG Momentum, and there will be an even bigger brawl. Now a 3v3 on the horizon, as Darkshin already down 50% of his HP. Now another Trundle Chomp comes out, flash forward, and the Abduct actually follows the chains. Xandarts finds himself first blood already.
This was a spicy level 1. I love these kind of fights. Like, you have the insane flash E from Sanders hitting the Jarvan, and you can see the early game pressure from Trundle. Like, the early damage on Q is just insane.
absolutely outrageous. Now, a bit of a lost trade here for the side of Xandarts, but that could also be because he has actually lost a considerable amount of HP to that turret shot, which I think he'll take that. Ooh. Knight finding himself in a bit of trouble here, but they do actually get level 2 for that. And they actually find the solo kill as Flight today flashes forward. And as I say that they're in trouble, what he was really looking for was getting that level 2. And they collapse on them immediately.
We actually didn't see the Trundle taking the Jarvan's blue buff. That's actually surprising. I thought the Trundle would just take the blue buff, maybe the Grump even, since Jarvan is definitely not going to go to the top side of the map for his starter buff. But
there could be an even bigger gambit going on here as Darkshin now sees the blue buff being taken down. Will he look to actually opt for that fight? Trundle is very strong at this point of the game. He does just flag and drag out. He does not know yet that his buff is still available to him, as Xandarts does finally hit level 3 as well. And Lilia has opted for a cheater recall up towards the top side. Look at the Shen CS here. This is literally the first wave that he's picking up. Xandarts is now in very deep trouble, as actually there is now 3 players coming out from the side of SGM who do find the collapse on mid lane. Darkshin being in a lot of trouble and oh my goodness, both of them fall here. The roam from Flay today does secure an even bigger advantage and now a 4-kill lead at before 4 minutes in the game.
I mean, this is a beautiful roam from Flay today. I love this. Supports that come mid lane. I'm a mid lane main myself, so this is just loving to see.
And in the deepest and darkest hour for Xandarts, who is just about to fall, his team is there to back them up, and the bait just looks perfectly executed. Lydia is actually losing this trade a little bit, and the Shen does get 2 grass procs off this time around, as the wave is, however, shoving into the Lilia. And with the Trundle being topside, he's finally actually collecting that blue buff that we had been talking about. So that does mean that Jarvan is completely unaware and will continue to fall behind, as I have somehow hid the scoreboard. Here we go. Brought it back up, and he's sitting at 8 CS. So the Jarvan being incredibly far behind and finds himself without his blue buff as well. More trading onto Ruzu here, who is 1 auto attack. He's dead. Oh no, he does flash correctly and does actually manage to survive. And now a little bit of healing coming out from the Conqueror, but it will quite be enough. Trundle not opting to help his top lane out, instead electing for their recall.
Very dangerous.
Yeah, this is a bit of a mistake coming out from Cold Insanity here, in my opinion, as there was the possibility to try to assist his laner here.
I think Shen should dive this.
Shen should dive this, but Lunge is not actually electing to go for that. He does have the flash and the taunt available, so this was a sitting duck Lilia without any mana and is left unpunished.
Yeah. I mean, this is just beautiful play from the SGM so far.
Yeah, and now they're actually looking to maybe set something up bot side, as Trundle has actually snuck himself behind the bot lane of CRK here. Confi is already dead here, and maybe don't find the kill onto Ezreal here, as now a bit of aggression on towards Xandarts, who does use the Kingslayer in order to try to heal himself up a little bit. Does not have the flash available, but Darkshin tanks the turret, and now it's danger time. Flash almost back up for Xandarts here. Might actually try to find the 2v1 outplay. And here come the members from SGM once more. The Trundle is now sitting inside the jungle of the Jarvan, and with the assistance of Flay today, that does mean that he does have to recall here.
This is a beautiful coordination from the support and the jungler. They're running around together. It's beautiful League of Legends.
And this does secure them the first dragon of the game. Herald being about 2 minutes away, so that might be the next objective of contention. KDS tries to go in mid lane, but once again, Flay is here to save the day. The namesake being absolutely perfect, and the Obduct does find the kill in the end as well.
This is beautiful roaming from the support. You really, he's using Rill's power at the maximum. Just perma roaming with the Trundle, perma coming mid lane, and even 2v2ing in the bot lane, as we saw level 2.
Well, I mentioned how good the support pool has been so far in SLE, and Flay today certainly being one of the candidates in that pool, having a beautiful start to the game here, already sitting at 4 KP this early on into the game. That's quite outrageous. Now, they do actually try to team up the Jarvan and the Morgana to try to secure the Scuttlecrab, but the side of SGM is not happy to just give that over. No smite actually available for the Jarvan means that the last couple of auto attacks will secure it in the end. Lunge's wave will push into Ruzu here, who does dodge the taunt, and now with the bowling ball missing, he does not find a further trade. Another Q, however, actually hitting, and that does mean that queuing inside the wave will end up pushing the wave for Ruzu. Galio on his way up here. Lunge trying to go aggressive. Flash is not available for Lilia, but it is available for the side of Lunge. He uses the lullaby early, so only sleep onto Shen here. That does mean that Ruzu will just fall to KDS.
This is a beautiful roam as well. They're setting this up perfectly. Shen taunts in and then the Galio lands. Really beautiful CC lock.
Well,
and then they pick up the kill.
We have to say a little bit of an overextension from Ruzu here, and maybe an incorrect usage of that ultimate ability. Holding on for it for maybe just a second too long and not being able to get out of that heroic entrance. Now the wave down here for Knife and Flay today will be pushing. So we will have to look and wait to see whether they can actually find themselves. Actually, I might be wrong and I might have misnamed them. I think Ben21 and Flay today are the better naming conventions here, as the shield comes out for Morgana, so the Kai'Sa ult will whiff just a little bit.
Just a tiny bit.
Not the largest amount of commitment being thrown down towards that bot side, but it does secure them once again the pressure advantage and the push. What will they do with the priority? Honestly, probably recall. Or they look to dive, but the Galio, the Jarvan rather, is very close here, and Flay today is positioning in such a way where that does make me think that they are looking to dive this. Picking up a plate for themselves will be all for here for now, as we see that Trundle is recalling inside of the topside jungle of the Jarvan here. He's now found his way actually fully into the bot lane. Ult and oh my goodness, this is just a two-man Cataclysm coming out from Darkshin here, who does manage to at least find the Kai'Sa, as Flay today uses the defensive flash and is trying to get away, and today he will.
Oh, that's an amazing play from Darkshin. Like, the two-man Cataclysm is just insane.
An absolute game changer, especially because the Kai'Sa ult was not available. Remember, just a few seconds earlier, I had mentioned that it was not the largest amount of commitment, but it does end up biting them in the back. And Jarvan actually finding some sort of way back into the game. Now down only 12 CS compared to the Trundle here, who does look to find potentially the Ezreal caught out. He does have the pillar available, but Ezreal has flash and ult, and here comes the Shen ult. Stand United coming forward, and now Colored Insanity might find himself in a very rough scenario. He does flash away, and with the healing coming out from the subjugate, he will actually get away. Xandart's now finding his way onto the Ezreal, and does find that kill, and a beautiful little slap from the Chain Lash will mean that if he TPs mid lane, he will be 2 kills richer. Now sitting at 5-0, and potentially even looking for this kill in the mid lane. Does get taunted up here, but has already landed his abduct and abscond. Now he will not go further on towards KDS, but the wave is in a very, very good place for Xandarts here, as KDS has to recall. He does have the TP available, where Xandarts is now looking without it, but you have to see how that can be utilized in the future.
I mean, this play bot lane really just changed up things.
Ooh, Lunge getting tagged up here will not mean that he gets dived, as I apologize for interrupting.
It's alright. When stuff goes down, you're the man. You talk so fast as well. Well, the bot lane fight that just happened just changed up things massively. Like, CRK was just about to get a lead. The Ezreal was actually ahead there. But then the tower plays and the first turret to Kai'Sa, with the Trundle, just made that lead go away.
Yeah, now more advantages. You're correct. They are opting for this dragon indeed, and they're fighting their second dragon. So, spicy, pretty close. That was a close one indeed. As they're now looking to roam towards that mid lane. KDS actually respecting it in time, so there won't be any further pressure collected. As we saw the Herald go down at some point, I believe. I did not actually see where it was picked. Yes,
It was
it was
bot lane.
used. It was used for the bot side, of course.
Yeah, it got 2 charges off, so it actually also hit the second tier 2. Or the
Wow.
tier 2
Okay.
tower and bot lane, so the bot lane turret is also around half HP. I would love to see if SGM would swap the bot lane and the top lane, so Lilia can get this long lane against Shen, and the bot lane can get these top plates before they run out in approximately 2 minutes. That would be a really nice macro play.
Now we do find Darkshin locking up Ruzu and actually forcing out the flash as he's now looking for a potential answer. Galio on the way, and the heroic entrance will mean that the Lily does have to back off until she reconnects with her Trundle here. Now they're finding both of them up towards the top side, and the bowling ball does slow down the Trundle, who cannot use the dash through the pillar. As I say that, the Trundle just gets burst down by the damage from Galio and Jarvan rather.
Yeah, this is a bit of an overextend for Coiled Insanity. He wasn't really supposed to be there, but I mean, it's also just a beautiful combination from the Jarvan and Galio locking up the Trundle with the Galio taunt and the incoming Jarvan EQ.
Well, we are seeing some big CS gaps actually being created for the two solo laners from the side of SG Momentum. Lilia obviously having an insane counter pick up towards the top side. So far, however, unsuccessful in trying to convert it into kills. But yeah, the gold is certainly in their favor. 700 gold in the top lane. I say only because there's 1.8k in that mid lane for Xandart, who was a key carry in their last game as well. And now they're looking for... Maybe the Lilia ult isn't up, so just bullying him under... excuse me, oh my goodness. There was some gas release there, excuse that.
It's alright. It can happen
Ooh,
to
here is
anyone.
finally the dive that we were waiting for. The Shin taunt comes out nicely, and now the Trundle has to stop tanking, as the last turret shot will not be actually able to kill him, but they're super low here, and they don't get the dive off successfully. Trundle dies to the Ezreal R. Oh my goodness, he got sniped across the map, and the TP now behind the Lilia means that she is turbo caught out here. Galio picking up the kill. KDS finding the kill finally, and here is another engage towards the mid lane. The tempo really turned up from the side of CRK, who are trying to find advantages across the map.
I mean, this is beautiful coordination from the side of CRK, the Galio TP coming in to execute the Lilia, and the failed dive is so painful to watch. But I mean, the Shen is also a hard champion to
How
dive
is the
because of
red buff
taunt.
still in aggro? What? What was
Yeah,
that? I just saw this red buff have one aggro bar for 20 seconds. That was crazy.
I mean, code of League of Legends.
Yeah, oh my. We've actually seen a red buff have some really interesting, spaghetti pathing. Ooh. Lunge just about getting out there. But yeah,
And-
another red buff situation here.
I mean, even though that is a CRK, they just got all these kills, they're still behind 5,000 gold at the 15-minute mark. Like, that's a massive lead. That's a full mythic item plus half an item.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting looking forward in the next dragon fight here at 1 minute.
Oh, Rel is actually turbo insane. She can actually just get the Scuttle Crab shield off with her Q as well. Every
Yeah.
single ability in her kit gets Scuttle Crab shield off.
Yeah, true. Actually,
I've never
good-
thought about that that way.
me neither. Actually,
Yeah, so now we actually see that they're trying to opt for the second Herald of the game, as Coiled Insanity is starting that up here and has the support of his bot lane. I'm really enjoying to see when supports link up for Herald, as I mentioned before. And even though it's the second one, I still appreciate it. You still get a gold star in my book.
Yeah. They could look to play for topside tier 1 and tier 2 here instead of the dragon, since they are heavily topsided right now with the Rill, with the Trundle.
Well,
And there's
what
only
I'm
15
asking,
seconds left.
what I'm asking is if you just try to get mid lane priority by killing the wave, place down the Herald, and thus secure yourself a dragon. You get a lot of damage onto the turret if just one person protects it. And
Yeah.
then you actually get free access to the dragon. However, the Kai'Sa and Rel do both choose to go for their resets, and both of them without TPs. So, while Xanarch is clearing that ward, in, I say both, yes, both the Dragon Pit and that Pixel Bush. Couple of auto
And that
techs
might be
now
caught
thrown.
out here.
Oh, nah, I don't think so. I think the mobility of the Silas will be enough. And now,
Yeah.
if CRK moves too deeply into that river, they will have to face the Trundle. Now the ward placed back into Pixel Brush, but the Shen, having both Stand United and TP available, has a free time up towards the top side. And the amount of time that is actually wasted for CRK here, even if they do give up the Dragon, is notable because the Shen is a little bit starved of CS, or was a little bit starved, as that is certainly a thing of the past now. Both of the wards that had previously been cleared were replaced, and both of them were once again... Oh my goodness, Coil
my
Insanity
God.
is dead to the Ezreal burst here, and now the Dragon does look to be going over for the side of CRK. Now the Dragon is smited, and Lilia finds herself in the pit, fails to flash. This is certainly some fumbles going on across the board, and CRK capitalize.
There is a mid lane turret here that they could potentially take, since the Silas is low, the Kai'Sa is low, the Rill is the only real threat. So maybe we can look into taking that with the Ezreal and the Shen in the mid lane right now.
Yeah, they are
But that
certainly
was
cross-trained.
insane fight. The burst that came out on the Trundle from the Ezreal and the Jarvan knockup. And then the ulti, the Cataclysm on the Silas coming up, following up with the Galio. And if you saw the Galio burst on the
Trundle
Kai'Sa,
might... I don't think I
might
have
look
to
to
interrupt you here, as there does seem to be enough mobility available
think
for
this will
both of
just-
them. As I say that,
yeah,
I
this
will be
just
proven
better
correct.
for-
Okay.
Yeah, the Galio actually chunked Kai'Sa to like around 20-30% of HP with one combo. So
Yeah,
Galio is actually really strong with this proto build.
Another full AP
Will
Galio. Oh, wait, did it get it off? I think it
did
did.
get
I
the
think
charge
it
off.
did get the charge. And now Flay Today likes to fight as the turret is already dead. So they are now going in. Jarvan trying to retreat, actually re-engage as I say that, and he does go down. He finds a nice EQ, but finds himself in the grave as well. Shen and himself dying as KDS finally arrives in the fight here. Without TP or the heroic entrance, he's just a little bit late on the play. And now maybe SG Momentum, after having flipped some fights, try to wrestle back control with their support Flay Today. And they're looking to continue this as Xandarts is posturing aggressively, maybe trying to bait something out. Flay Today under some scrutiny coming out from Just League Things, who is set up as the carry and is certainly trying to do so.
Yeah, they just picked up the tier 2 gold, which is 550 if I'm not wrong, since they buffed it a few patches ago, so that is really huge. That's adding up to the gold deficit right now. And we are looking at a 5.5k gold lead right now. Really looking forward to the fights.
Mostly due to the turrets and the turret plates that the side of SG Momentum did secure themselves, as obviously the kill score is rather even, and then some small CS leads across the board. Now that does mean that most of the gold is situated on the two carries, and then a lot of gold also sitting on the Trundle. But having most of your gold on a Kai'Sa and a Silas, I think that's where you want to be.
Yeah, you mainly want to have your gold on Silas and Kai'Sa here in this game. But I'm really looking forward for the Trundle ulti for when Jarvan and Shen and Galio goes in, because he can really chunk out these or take the resistances away with the ulti.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing that. Maybe they can blow up
Ooh,
the
buff here
Jarvan.
secured for Darkshin, and the TP will be coming in as he does go forward with the EQ combination. The Trundle flashes himself out of that Cataclysm as he's not trying to get away from the rest of the tanky bruisers from the side of CRK. Flay Today trying to find the engage as the Trundle falls already. Kai'Sa being a little bit late, but here comes Ruzu over the wall. No movement speed stacked up will mean that the heroic entrance does land on both of those members here. Xandart's going extremely low. Also having the Kingslayer back available now, trying to dash towards a target that he can utilize it on, but Ben 2 is now trying to take down the Galio. So in the end, it will now be a 3-for-2 for the side of CRK, as there have some pretty low health bars on both sides. Another Q connects for the side of Just League Things, as the Ezreal is really trying to bring this game home.
I mean, as I said in the draft, this Ezreal needs to be the carry. And he is looking forward to doing that. He is trying his best at the moment to carry. I mean, the goal deficit is still 4k, so I'm actually surprised that the fights are turning out as they are. But I mean, the side of CRK, they have insane lockdowns. So once you caught one person, he's gonna be dead with this easy lock.
Well, we did just see, or if we look at the gold, we can actually see that the Ezreal and the Kai'Sa are almost even. So the carry potential for just League things is certainly being set up beautifully here. We are now going to go into more of the later stages or the mid-game stages of the game, and so these fights will get scrappier and scrappier as we go. And already one is being kicked off as Darkshin does manage to find Code Insanity yet again inside a Jarvan ult, and he will fall even though he did use that subjugate. Xandart's now TPing in, but just having to look on as his jungler falls once again.
This is clearly an overextension again from the side of the Trundle Coiled Insanity.
Twice in a row, basically, as he does try to set up priority around the Inferno Dragon, and now having fallen already, that does mean that there might be a bit of a favor towards the side of Crown of the Ruin King to secure themselves their second Inferno Dragon of the game. They do so successfully. Are there any items choices that surprise you so far?
I think the Ezreal could actually opt into going the Shirel does right now. I don't think with this amount of peel and the lack of like really divey hard engage from the side of SGM, I think he does. I don't think he needs the frozen heart from it. I think he should just go straight out damage since he's the main carry as well.
Yeah, we did not see many avenues for the side of CRK into this game, but we're certainly seeing the one that we have set up for ourselves being executed on. Now, an early start of the Baron, as the side of Crown of the Ruin King is already back to resetting on the map. They're a little bit slow on this, so they will arrive to that Baron in time, and they will have to peel off of it. I would at least hope so, as Flay today does get rooted up here. Kai'Sa still DPSing it down. Darkshin jumping into the pit. Baron drops to 2,000. Smite already coming out from the side of Darkshin, as Cold Insanity this time around does actually survive. And he does not have his Smite available, as he was actually the one to utilize it. So actually mattering in the end, as Xandart is fighting on the back end, fighting the Ezreal as well. Extremely low health pot for the side of SG Momentum, as they're just managing to barely out teamfight Crown of the Ruin King in the most important fight of the game that we have seen so far. Now Confi, as the only one available, will just look at them trying to do the Baron, and this time around they will look to actually secure it for themselves. Standards does not fall to the Baron, as finally Coiled Insanity is tanking that up with the Ben to actually DPSing it down.
I mean, this was a beautiful fight from Sanders. He went in the backline. I think the side from CRK didn't win a bit too deep in from the front line with the Jarvan, and then the Shen ulti on top of the Jarvan. But we didn't really see the Galio ulti at the Jarvan, which is actually surprising.
That was certainly surprising, as the Jarvan was just a tad bit too early, maybe panicking a little bit, trying to get into the pit, and it was very close, right? We did see Coiled Insanity actually having to smite to just barely stay alive, so that teamfight could have swung in either team's way, but in the end, SG Momentum will come out the victor and find themselves now with 5 Baron buffs, I believe, as I tell a lie, there are 4 on the map for the side of SGM.
Yeah, there's only 4.
Xandart's now looking at the Scuttle Crab and the delectable treat that it might offer to him, but he has to give it up to the side of Crown of the Ruin King. Yes, they do actually collect that. Yeah, what do you think will be the next priority in the game?
I mean, I think it's gonna be all about side lanes now from the side of SGM. Like, they have a fed Silas, and we saw the Lilia into Shen matchup. It's not playable from Shen. He can't do much. And the Galio, I don't think he can match the Silas in the side lane. So if you just play safe in mid lane with your Trundle, Kai'Sa and Rel, you let your Silas get the push and you get your Lilia get the push, I think it would work out perfect.
Well, a bit of an unsung hero so far has been Ben21. Who is now completed his 3rd item, so a 3-item AD carry. If I look at my rulebook of League of Legends, that means that he is now officially online and at a point where he feels comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, the 3-item power spike on any ADC is just insane. That's where you really get a hit. and really get a massive lead in terms of items.
Well, just
Once the Israel hits the 3 items, I think it's gonna look a bit different, but
yeah,
so
he
far,
did
right
actually
now,
have to build himself a. But it's not called Blade of Avarice. What is it called? Executioner's Calling. I apologize. I was stuck a little bit in the past there. Maybe entering the
that's a few
time
patches
chamber.
ago.
a couple. Well, the
Yeah.
Executioner's Calling has been picked up for the side of the Ezreal, and he has looked absolutely really good in the team fights so far. So maybe the next team fight, they can actually eke out, as even though SGM have secured themselves a couple of leads, Crown of the Ruin King are certainly battling back from even a gold deficit throughout the game.
Yeah, I mean the goal deficit we saw it earlier 10 minutes ago. It was 5k in the lead from SGM, but now it's sitting at 8 point something that I can't figure out real quick. 9k now, since the tower turret tier 2 just fell.
Ooh, maybe Darkshin finds a very nice angle onto the Fed Silencier, who does not have the shutdown anymore, but now has to try to get away. He does use the Abscond and the Everfrost to actually survive this attempt on him.
Yeah, and we see that SGM is looking to pick up that third dragon, which will result in them being on soul point. I will be looking forward for the next dragon fight, if it will take that far.
These fights have been absolutely bloody and absolutely insane. And if I was a British man, I would maybe even say bloody insane.
Oh, the good old British accent.
Well, even more items now completed for the side of SGM, as there is a full team reset and they're looking to retreat back on the map.
Benju got the stopwatch. I'm sorry.
No. You are absolutely
you go
correct
ahead.
about mentioning the Zonya's Hourglass. Talk to me a little bit about it.
I mean, the stopwatch and the hourglass is just really broken item. You get invulnerable for 2.5 seconds where you can't be touched. But you sit in place, so if your team is losing in those 2.5 seconds, then it could turn out bad if not properly used.
Well, we have seen Xandarts really dive into the backline to try to provide a threat for the Ezreal, because if Just League Things just gets to free it, we've seen what he can do. Now Ben 2-1 finding himself under a little bit of scrutiny, but does manage to get away for now. And here is the actual stolen Stand United to try to pick off Confi, who tries to at least buy time for the rest of her carries. Just League Things finding the Kai'Sa on the backline with a beautiful Arcane Barrage, and now they are exactly in the position that they want. Xandart's still trying to provide a threat on towards Just League Things. He will just not give up. And here comes the Zonius. Will it be clutch or will it not matter? A nice sleeping lullaby from the side of Ruzu, who does manage to pick up a couple of members here. Just League Things finding the kill onto Flay today, but will fall in the end. Once more, Confi finds herself as the onlooker of the horror.
We actually didn't see the Ben 2 stopwatch being used this fight, which is a bit sad. I would really have hoped that she would use it when the Jarvan dived in onto her. Or maybe even for the Ezreal ulti, so she could neglect that damage. That could have maybe turned...
Did just go over to the side of Just League Things, and tell me a little bit about what these two, what the gold lead means in terms of where it is on the carries.
I mean, right now the Ezreal is massive. Even though he is still the same gold as the Kai'Sa, the Ezreal is... I mean, I just lost track of my words.
Well, that is okay, as we do now see 3 fully completed items for the side of the Ezreal. He did end up going with the Frozen Heart. I think understandably so. We wanted to see a lot of damage coming out, but obviously the pressure coming out from Xandarts has to be respected, and slowing him down in any sort of manner might be very valuable. I would have preferred to see some sort of magic resist potentially being built up, but he might have looked to find different avenues with the amount of gold that he has secured for himself. Baron now being threatened here, as Darkshin finds himself caught out by the 3-man squad coming out here from SG Momentum. Ben 2-1 diving forward, trying to duel the deeps to the side of Just League Things, who will fall alongside his support, and finally the two can rest in the grave together.
And this will be the end of game 1.
Oh my goodness, I think you might be right. As they're trying to push forward, trying to secure the kill onto KDS, as the Stand United is just slightly mistimed. Just a tremendous game to watch. It was so enjoyable seeing Crown of the Ruined King battle back as they find themselves at 0-2, but with certainly some amount of brevity and at least longevity, and I will look to see what they can do in the future. Excited to see SG Momentum go up 2-0, the tournament favorites, of course, coming in here. Just a really good game to see from them. As we can maybe look to find, as I said, maybe twice, an interview. I will try to get that going. As you can maybe tell me some of the stories of this game.
The what? Sorry.
What was the general story of the game?
I mean, we had the level 1 in the top side invade, where the Jarvan got really set behind. He died at 130-ish, and then he tried to, when he came back on the map, he went to his red buff, and he thought the Trundle might have went for his blue buff, and then opted into his red buff, which I think is also the correct way of thinking. But the Trundle did opt into going for his red buff and then straight to his blue buff to secure the blue buff so the Jarvan doesn't fall even further behind. And then we got the 2v2 in bot lane at level 2 where Flay today, he just goes in and he locks down the Morgana. And was it actually Ben 2 that finished off the kill?
I believe so, as he did pick himself up a couple of early kills, but that play coming out from Flay today certainly being extremely impressive. If you had to pick an MVP for the game or a Rift Star, who would you give the Rift Star to?
Flay today played an insane early game with the Roam's mid lane. He was there at the 2v2 mid jungle, 2v2 from both teams. He was there to interrupt that and say, hey, this is our fight, we'll take this fight. And he was there at the second time when Galio tried to kill Sanders. And he's just had an insane performance this game. So definitely it's to Flay today.
Well, after having been interviewed in the previous game, I will now have Xandarts coming up here. Welcome, Xandarts, once again to the casting room. We've heard from you yesterday, I believe, and today was your second day once again. Yesterday, you looked pretty dominant. Today, you had once again an absolutely beaut of a game. So talk to me a little bit about what changed from yesterday to today and how you approached this game.
I mean, yeah, indeed, I would call it, how should I say this? How we approached it differently. I think the draft was a little bit on the weaker side. I think we would have done some other stuff that would be better, like flex Silas top, for example, into Shen and actually counterpick the Galio. But to be honest, like this game, it's all my team. To be honest, I went more for the support Silas.
Yeah.
And I definitely think my team killed it.
I saw you running around every single wall in the game trying to chase down that Ezreal in every single team fight. It was pretty funny to see that cat and mouse, and in the end we all know that unless it's Tom and Jerry, the cat usually wins. Flay today, for us, being an absolutely outstanding performer here, so coming mid lane and helping you out twice, really setting you up to start to snowball. And then you talked a little bit about what was different in draft for you today. We saw the Lilia once again in a matchup where she was very favorable in, right? What would you like to see for your next couple of games? What are you looking to change?
I mean, that's a bit of a tough question, I think. What are we looking to change?
I mean, are you looking? You're 2-0. Excuse me. You're literally 2-0. You've not lost a single game, and you've looked very good in both games. But what do you generally want to approach, or what are you trying to look for in a game of League of Legends?
I mean, not looking to spoil anything. It's all gonna be a surprise for the later draft, but I think we might end up doing some more mid to late game mid laners rather than these Silas Irelia as we progress later in the tournament. Though at the same time, as you said, it's going pretty good, and yeah, nothing more to it.
Well, once again, I say thank you for coming on to the interview today. 2-0 basically qualifies you for Division 1. I think we all had been looking for that placement. So yeah, we will have to see what the future holds for you, what the future holds for SG Momentum. Thank you for coming on today. And with that, we will be concluding day number 4. It was your first time, like you casting here, Jonas, was a little bit spontaneous. Did you
Yeah,
enjoy it?
it
Did
was.
you have a good time?
I mean, yeah, it was a really nice time actually. I loved it, and listening to your cast like throughout the team fights, like you're just an amazing caster, to be honest. It's
Well,
an honor.
you are absolutely amazing as a natural, and I had a great time with you. I will certainly hope that we can repeat that at some point in the future. I will now
I'd
say
be
good
down.
night to everyone here, everyone watching. Good night to you, Jonas. We
Good
will
night
be
to
seeing
you.
you tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah.
see you tomorrow.
All right.